Hello and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie. Y'all, so thrilled to be joined here today by Justin Donald. Justin, we met, I guess, a year ago. We sat down for the Knowing podcast, and then we found our way over here today to the Knowing Show. And before we jumped on here, you were sharing some pretty cool things going on in your life, even just going to Antigua with your daughter and your wife. You're in the middle of building a multifamily office, and there's just been a lot of success in your wake. When I look at your life, it's like seed after seed that you've planted that you're seeing so much harvest in your life, in your lifetime. You know, a lot of times we don't see the real impact until much later on, and so it's exciting, the books that you've written and the impact made there, and obviously the real estate and the investments that you've been making into people, into businesses that have yielded great returns. So thank you for joining us. I'm excited for this chat.
Well, thanks for having me here, Christine. It's great to be here. Great to connect again. We have obviously several mutual friends, and I'm going to be flying out to Scottsdale next week for to spend some time at the Pro Athlete Community event, the PAC event, and we're going to get a chance to hang. So do some dinner. I can't wait.
Me too. Justin, you know, as we were initially asking you this question around, you know, what's been on your mind, what's been on your heart, you were talking about this event that you were actually just attending about how to 100x impact your life. And, you know, on the Knowing Show, we focus on key intelligences that constitute the human being. We talk about the intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, physical intelligence. Our body keeps a score, it stores data, and spiritual intelligence. And so the way that you live your life, you've done probably one of the best jobs out of everyone that I personally know to leverage each intelligence and know how to harness it in a way for impact. And so this event that you were just at, how to 100x impact your life, I'd love for you to kind of break down what was most meaningful to you in terms of what spoke to how you're already living.
Well, it's a very kind introduction and probably too gracious, so hopefully I don't let people down. But what I'll say is, you know, I've been involved in a lot of masterminds over the years. I've got a lot of friends that run them. It's been, you know, a great cheat code for me to unlock my potential and to think bigger. And I've joined all these different groups over the years, and certain groups I've been in for the long haul, and other groups it's like it's the foundation, and I utilize that in the season I needed it. I move on to something else where I need something new, and then of course I have my own masterminds that I run.
Right.
But you know, for me to run a great mastermind, I need to be involved in other great masterminds, and so I'm always looking for the best and the brightest, not just members, but also the practitioners, the you know, the people that are actually putting on the events. And so, you know, over the last decade, I've probably been part of 30 or more different masterminds. So, I mean, I really have a good feel for these different groups, but I joined this group this year from the prompting of several friends, one of them being my good friend, Don Wenner, who is running this group for, it's called 100X Forum. And Lloyd Reeb is the real kind of brains and genius and coaching behind it. He used to work with Bob Buford while he was still alive with the Halftime Institute, and Bob was his mentor. And now Lloyd has taken on the reins of that role and just coaches very successful entrepreneurs and a lot of very successful Christian entrepreneurs. And it's just a really neat program that is designed for you to figure out how you can have 100x impact over the second half of your life, which is the more meaningful portion of your life. It's the point where you're moving from success to significance, where instead of focusing on yourself and what you can do, it's focusing on others. And I was, you know, we just did an event the last 2 days. I think there were, you know, about 70 people or so. And I was one of the youngest people in this room. So it was a lot of people in their 60s, 70s. John Maxwell came and spoke, and just Carrie Looper and David Weekley, and just an all-star cast of people that are doing things at a high level. And I just left so inspired. You know, my goal is to have impact with time and resources, but the people there are just playing such a big game. I mean, you know, my goal is to live a generous life. I left that meeting feeling like oh, I'm nowhere close to where I need to be on the generosity scale. There were two gentlemen in that room that have given away 50% of their income for the last 35 years to kingdom activities.
Wow.
Really inspiring. John Maxwell set a number. So he set basically a net worth number that once I hit this, everything else goes to charity. So, and he hit that a long time ago. I think his was over 20 years ago. So whatever he makes in a year that would put him over his net worth number, he gives away. And so I just left feeling like there is so much more I can do. I have so much more room to become a more radical, for radical generosity, or be a radically generous giver. And I'm ready to step up to that challenge. So it was fun. Sometimes if like, I don't need to keep score with other people, but I like to keep score with myself. And I want to know that I'm more generous this year than I was last year.
Yeah.
And so, showing up, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a good job, and I left, and I'm like, holy cow, I don't even know what a good job is. Like, I'm not even close to what these guys are doing. I'm one of the guys that's making 26 million a year, giving away 13 million a year. Wow. Just beautiful.
Yeah. And it's so not at all the way culture talks. Nope. I think that I like that you started with, I enter masterminds really intentionally and specifically, because it really is, it's not just the sum of who you spend time with intellectually. That's why each intelligence is really important, because people who are, yes, they might actually be really savvy business owners intellectually, but maybe they actually have a terrible emotional relationship with their families and their kids, so it's looking at the holistic person. And would you say, Justin, is that probably the number one thing, if you were to advise anyone at any point in their life or career, go be with those people who are 5 steps ahead of you, 10 steps ahead of you, maybe they're where you are, but you all have a similar drive. What would you say?
Yeah. For me, it is the single, if I had to point to what would I attribute the success and the joy that I've had in life and the impact that I've had, like all the things that I would say for me have made my life a great life. If I had to, really dial down and say, what was it? What caused this? And there are a number of different things, but I would say the number one thing would be peer group and mentorship, like without a doubt. Me consciously making a decision to invest in my education and invest in my surroundings. I think Jim Rohn coined the quote that you are the net worth of your net worth is the average sum of the net worth of the 5 people the best and spend the most time with. And so it's like, yeah, that is true. If I'm going to up my game, I need to be around people that can show me it, but they may have gotten there through a lot of ups and downs. So they can actually teach me how to get there and teach others how to get there without all the mistakes. It is a true shortcut, and you got to put in the work and you got to be willing to learn. But that for me is easy because I'm just an eternal student. I love to learn. I like to go to conferences. I like to go to events. I really like to be in the classroom. Yeah. Like that is one of my absolute favorite things. And so, yeah, put me around people playing the game of life, wealth creation, giving, fitness, whatever at a much higher level than me. And I am going to I'm going to just curious the heck out of them, right? I'm just going to be a question asker.
I love that you said curious. That was one of the things that really resonated so deeply for me in our first conversation, Justin, was how curiosity has been a core tenet of your life. It's been like a critical part of your foundation. And I think that has been, and it wasn't even just curiosity that stood out in our previous conversation. It was that and the ability to use your no and your yes with such intention. When we have clarity of vision, we then can clarify the tracks to get there, and thus say yes and no in a way that really, really aligns so that we get to that end destination. And to kind of this whole conversation around peerdom, where am I spending time with peers? Where am I spending time with mentors? In addition to that layer, your relationship with your wife has been something that I've really appreciated, you having very clear boundaries. So that lends to the saying no. Like, I'm done. Wasn't it at 5:30 you would spend time with your family?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is without fail. And often it's at 5, but like the hardcore cutoff is 5:30.
Yeah, like that's most people when they talk about getting to this point in their lives, it's okay, what do I have to say no to as it pertains to family, friends, fun, you know, all of these things that actually constitute living life itself, rather than just chasing an end goal. So I feel like there's this balance of living in the present, yet also thinking so futuristically about who do I want to be and where do I want to get to on a business perspective and even a growth trajectory. So how do you balance that?
Well, I think you just have to get clear on what your ultimate priorities are, you know, and for me, it's it's really putting in the time and you know, but I've got two women in my life. I've got my wife and I've got my daughter, and I'm very confident that each of their number one love language is quality time. My daughter's might be number two, but it's top two for both of them. I think it's number one for both of them. So that's it. You know, I think I shared on your show last time just how my mentor basically said, like, your business is resilient and it can bounce back, and you know, if you drop it, you can pick it up again. But your family is not that way. It's fragile, and if you drop it and you don't show up, there is an effect to that, and maybe you can't repair it. So for me, it's making the decision that that is honoring them and getting the quality of time with them that I want to get in, and that might come at the quote unquote loss of some business, but I don't actually think that it does, you know, and if I lost on some business to gain a greater relationship with my family, that is a trade-off I'm willing to make. And I think, you know, earlier in my life, when I followed more of the cultural norms and I was ignorant to what was most important, I probably more often made the trade-off of, well, they'll be there later. This deal's really important, or this meeting's really important. I need to attend it. And luckily, that was a short-lived season in my life, partially because my wife is very hardcore about, you know, her expectations and boundaries. And part of it is, you know, I just got clear on who it was that I wanted to be.
So good. Getting clear on who it is that you want to be. I love that. Justin, as you've kind of evolved in your career, you know, creativity was one of the core tenets at the beginning. And now it sounds like generosity is something that really is like something that you're passionate about. Have you seen other values not come and go? It's not like you're done being curious, but some that were really foundational early on in your career, and then others that have kind of come midway through?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I grew up in a home where uh, there wasn't a lot of money, and the mindset around money was that it was scarce and hard to find. And so, and I love my parents. I've got a great relationship with my parents, but for them, it wasn't something that there was excess of, and there wasn't also the belief that that could be the case, right? And so, you know, for me, I do believe that that's the case. I believe if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to get around by the way, I would say that the reason I've had the success I've had is because I am just a good copycat, and I will just go find the people that have had it, and they've got a blueprint, they've got things that they do, and I'll just copy it. So it's not that I'm that smart, but I am clever enough to recognize, like, this is the way you do it. If someone else has done it, I can do it too. I just need the playbook. And so, you know, for me, it's just recognizing um, that I want to get a little bit better each day. And early in my life, money was scarce. And so I probably over prioritized the importance of money. And I was super thrifty, which served me really well early on. But that thriftiness actually can hurt you later on when you don't need to be thrifty, or when you're spending too much time making a decision that doesn't matter because it's the difference of $100, right? But at some point, that is a legit decision that people need to make, and that is warranted, right? But at a certain point, it becomes not a great use of your time if the finances are in a good spot, right? And so it's navigating that. So, you know, you'd asked a little bit about trade-offs, or did things change? I think the older I get, the more I see, you know, like I'm at the age now that I used to be like, oh man, your parents are old, right? Well, that's me. Like I'm now, you know, the quote unquote old parent. I don't feel old, you know. I feel like I'm a young kid, like Peter Pan, like just, you know, going out having fun. But from an age standpoint, I'm like, oh wow, you know, it is a different place. And by the way, my life has gotten better every year. Like I love where I'm at. I love how old I am. I love the life that I have. But the older I get, I feel like the wiser I get, the smarter I get. I've made plenty of mistakes that I can learn from. And, my daughter's 13, so I've got 5 years left with her where, I mean, so I think the studies say that like 90% of the time you spend with your kids is before they turn 18, and 10% is from 18 for the rest of their lives. So it's like, I've got 5 more years to really clock it in. So some of my values have changed around how much time am I spending with my family and what are the things that I want to do? I want to create epic experiences. And am I willing to spend a little bit more today than I was back then? Yeah. My wife and I joke about how frugal I was for our vacations and trips or buying furniture for our home. Whereas like today, it's like, no, this is where you splurge, create epic moments and experiences and buy nice things and have people over and, have the stuff that make the kids want to come to your house. Right. So it's a total paradigm shift around money and saving and spending and where to spend and how to spend wisely. But obviously doing that, like I've always been good about not overspending for what I make.
Man, isn't that a life lesson? I mean, truly, to be able to know how to save and live within your means. Justin, I love what you said. I hadn't heard that statistic around 90% of effectively the relationship is under 18. And it completely flips it on its head because so many people are living for retirement, but you're not going to have your kid in retirement.
That's right.
So I really,
and hopefully you did a good enough job that in retirement, your kids want to hang out with you, right?
Yes.
I mean, I want to create these magic moments and do these cool trips. And I want, her and her future husband and, friends to want to come on these trips,
Right.
like that's a nice hook to be like, well, my parents travel well. And, every year or every, couple times a year, we get to go do these cool trips. Like those things I do think matter, as long as it's, within your budget and it makes sense. And, but you don't even have to spend a lot to create epic experiences. So it's not about how much you spend, right? But you can make something incredible. And, really it's just knowing what the people in your life value most, what their dreams are. Like this summer, we did this dreams list exercise with our daughter. Where's the number one place you want to go? Paris. Why? Eiffel Tower. What else? There's got to be something else, and really it's primarily Eiffel Tower, but cafes and pastries, and she's excited to have a French macaroon, like this stuff. So we built our summer trip around going to Paris because this will help her check off one of her dreams. And I'm thrilled about it. And there's a spot that my wife's fired up about going to. So we're going there. There's a spot that I want to go. I love going to new countries I've never been to. So, we're going to go to Sicily and Malta. And that's going to be great. We're going to Sardinia, going to Corsica. So like, we're going to hit up a bunch of cool spots and create really cool memories.
Have you read the book Die with Zero?
I have.
That book really, it made an imprint on me to this point around, again, it's kind of self-explanatory just from the title, but really don't just save up all your, there's this biblical story about this man who had all this wealth and all this, basically everything he farmed and tilled from the land, he stored it away and kept it safe. And then a fire came and ate it up and it's like, okay, well, it's all gone now. And that's so often what happens. We end up dying with whatever we've accumulated over our life and we're holding on to it so tightly rather than seeing that bank accounts are not just financial. The other day, Justin, we were talking about on the show, what is the return for your time? What's the return on investment for your time? And we think about return on investment financially, but there's so many other types of returns that we get in each one of those categories: return intellectually, return emotionally, return physically, financially. And there's just so many categories. And so do you think it all kind of centers around this theme of knowing who you want to be? In one sense, I'm like, yes. And also it's a sum of who you spend time with. Like, what are we missing here from this picture? Knowing our target and then having the people around us to get there.
So both of those incredibly important, and probably the most important things, I think, putting boundaries in place that can kind of booby trap success. I think having accountability is really important because it's easy to get off track, and you need to have the people in your life that can really speak into you. So that could be your peer group. It could be mentors. It could be people that you just pay to be accountability partners, or maybe it's no one that you pay, but you end up, having a close friend that acts as that. But I mean, these are people you have to be open and honest with and vulnerable with, and they need to know the real you. It can't be a mask, right? It can't be a facade. So I think, yeah, it's the proactive nature of spending time knowing who you want to be, where you want to go, what you want your life to look like. So again, I say this in my podcast, it's not a life by default, which most people live. It's a life by design. It's proactive thinking. It's reflexive. And then you have the people around you that can help you get there. That's peer group. And then also mentorship. You need some of the people that can pull you up. So peer group that you can do it together. You can learn a ton from them, especially if they're playing the game of any of these areas of life at a higher level than you. But the mentor pulls you up and kind of teaches you that you've got to build some boundaries, or have people that have been through it help you build the boundaries. And then you need accountability to stay on track and to do the right thing. And then just be careful that the obstacles that are coming. Like there isn't, having a lot of money. There are tons of obstacles to that. Having a lot of success and moving up the corporate ladder quickly. There are a lot of negatives that can come. So you have to be prepared to know how to handle ahead of time the things you don't yet have, so you don't become a jerk.
Yes. Stay someone that your kids want to hang out with.
Yeah.
It is funny. I'm not sure. I've heard Jordan Peterson has done a big change, but I still appreciate his book, 12 Rules for Life. And one of the things that he says that I just get such a kick out of is raise your kids the way that you enjoy hanging out with them. Like if you don't like your kids, no one else is going to. And it's kind of the same thing goes the opposite. Like, are we actually someone that our kids want to be around? So to your point around the experiences, it is, man, what a beautiful way to build that bond and that relationship moment. I wanted to ask you, so a lot of folks who are raised in a certain environment, it is like pulling teeth to reprogram your mind around certain things. And the way that you've reprogrammed your mind around money is so incredibly profound to watch, because it's not just that you've done a reprogram for yourself, but now you've actually been able to really give and be able to 100x that impact in other people's lives because of this reprogramming. So I'd love to hear, how did you go about doing that?
It's interesting. I don't know that it's like I flipped a switch and then it happened. I mean, I think it was just little bits over a period of time that culminated in a bigger shift or a bigger change. I mean, it's clearly obvious that people were doing things different than me and getting better results in the early days. So it's like, well, I have the wrong playbook right now. So some of it is that, but some of it's just like listening to the right podcasts, reading or listening to books on these topics that can get you to shift what your beliefs are, because your beliefs are going to tie down a lot of like your potential growth and evolution. So part of what needs to grow is your belief of the different things that you want, that it's possible, or that you can be different, that what others have, you could also have if you were willing to do the right things or the same things. So I think more than anything, it's like this belief system that you've got to crack the code on, that you can have the life that you desire if you are clear enough to figure out what that life actually is in the first place, and then create a playbook of small baby steps to get there, but that you're taking them with consistency on a regular basis, and you got people to model after.
Yes. The people to model after, I think, is really important. I think of it so often, it's like, oh, who can mentor me? Who are my peers in terms of one-to-one relationships? But the models are just as important. Justin, it's so interesting. I look back on various things in my life that haven't gone well, and the models that I had were all outdated models.
Yep.
And so I didn't have a new target. It's like we end up doing a 360 rather than a 180 change if we don't have that target in that model. And we don't have to know them. And I think that's a really, really good note, is that yes, we can have mentors and peers, but these models, these targets who show us a better way, a different way, we don't necessarily need to be in relationship with them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, most of my mentors in the early days had no clue they were my mentors. I just read every book they put out, or I read the ones that resonated several times. Today you've got so much access at your fingertips to anything. I mean, books get really specific. Podcasts can get even more specific, especially if you can find some topic that you're interested in where it's like, hey, this podcast has, hundreds of episodes on this one area that you want to get great at. I mean, how amazing is that? I love having my own podcast. I know you do too,
Right.
because I'm a big student. I love to learn from the people that come on the show. Like, that's super fun. But in my free time, if I'm not podcasting, I'm listening to other people's podcasts.
Right.
I'm reading other people's books. I've done something now for over 20 years where I've taken someone to either breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and I've just picked their brain. And I've done this once a week, typically on a Friday.
Wow.
Every week for literally, I did it virtually during COVID, but literally for over 20 years. And we're talking, over 1,000 people. We're talking thousands of hours. And that intentionality has been rewarded because I'm asking questions, just taking all the things that they've done, all their success habits,
Yes.
and figuring out what makes sense, what can I apply. And it's just, that has been more impactful to me than just about anything I've done.
Wow. I love that's such a tangible action. It's like literally go out. And that's the thing. I know that you did it virtually during COVID, but there is something around face-to-face. Like you and I did our first podcast in person, and I don't know, it was just so different to meet you and give you a hug and have that conversation. Now when I see you here, it's like, oh, we're old pals.
We know each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And it solidifies and cements the memory in so much of a deeper way. I wanted to ask a question actually that Ben offered here in the chat. He says, what if it doesn't go as planned? And I think that's for so many of us, it's like, I'm at this point where it just keeps failing, or I keep running into the same roadblock, and it's painful. It's painful to fail on every level of analysis, sometimes more than others. What would you say?
Well, I just had someone on my podcast right before this. So I wrapped it up. I hopped on your show. His name's Nir, N-I-R. And he does all kinds of big time studies and reads this research, all this stuff that most people, it'd be like the worst thing ever for them. It does not sound really fun to me, but I got to get all the, kind of takeaways from it. And he said the one key difference to those that are the most successful is simply persistence. People think it's all these other things. It's not. It's persistence. It's that, and even in the world of entrepreneurship, they're the biggest losers out there, meaning they've lost the most times. They've had the most mistakes. They've had the most things go wrong, yet they've still pursued forward. They've still been persistent through it. So I would say for me in the early days, I wanted the results so much like faster and bigger than how they showed up. But I also recognize in the back of my mind, it's a process. I'm not going to get everything right. I'm going to make some mistakes along the way. But like investing, there's a compound effect that happens.
Right.
And so you might not see it happening. And it's also hard to see your own growth, right? So as you're growing, you don't see it. Other people are more likely to see it than you. So you may know that you're putting in the work, but you may not feel the growth that you've had. Other people that are close to you probably can see it more readily than you. But I think it's like, like the old school water pump where you had to pump that thing, so many times, no water comes out. You keep pumping and eventually it just starts gushing. I think it's that, I look at it like Warren Buffett, where people are like, whoa, that guy, greatest investor ever, worth billions of dollars. But most people don't realize that he wasn't even a billionaire until he was in his 60s. I think it was his late 60s or mid 60s. So he'd have been investing all these years and his returns are kind of like, and then it just skyrocketed after the time was there to compound. And I think our lives are the same way. and people get discouraged early and don't keep putting in the work. They lose the fight to go on. And really the number one thing, being persistent. They're not persistent and it doesn't work out. So I just say persist through.
So good. I love that advice. You know, I never really understood the concept of endurance until I was training for a marathon, and I was like, oh my gosh. We actually can mentally, we actually, it's just a mental game. Like our bodies actually can keep going. I love how David Goggins talks about I think it's a 1 second rule. Our bodies shut down when we actually, like our brain, it's not our bodies, our brain shuts down when we're at 40% capacity, because it then goes into survival mode. And it's like, oh, we want you to stay safe. We want you to stay comfortable, but we still have 60% left capacity. And so learning how to persist through, to your point, around kind of those mental hangups of like, oh, actually, is it just my survival, lizard brain kicking into gear that I just kind of need to push through? This is uncomfortable, and I'm going to keep doing it. Like at lunch every Friday, lunch or coffee every Friday for 20 years. Compounding interest. I love that analogy because it is so true. He's a friend now. He came on the show the other day. He was born and couldn't breathe for 45 minutes and developed cerebral palsy. And he went on to win a Paralympic world record. And he was on the show last week. And it was really interesting, Justin, because he said, he was like, after I won that, okay, now what? What am I going to live for? That had been his whole life's pursuit and aim. So whether it's Warren Buffett getting, $1 billion, hitting that milestone at 60, 65, and then realizing, okay, that's what I was living my life for. Or at 30, you end up having this reckoning with life of like, okay, what am I going to do next? And when you're at this point of like, okay, what do I even have the internal tools to know how to pursue something new, to know how to deviate, to have the persistence to continue to go. He said he has made it a study every time he kind of is running into this place of, okay, what's next? He'll do something new for 100 days. He won't stop until he's done it 100 times. So whether it's 100 paintings, 100 movies, 100 times going live, 100 pieces of content, 100 coffees and lunches, if we stop before that 100 mark, it's really hard to have real tests to know, is this even viable? Is this even a really good path for me to go down?
So true.
With the persistence aspect, I'm wondering, we've got clarity on who we want to be, our mentors and peer groups. We have our model, we have persistence. And then to that aspect of, you were talking earlier about the playbook that you had and having the model. I'm wondering, what have been the biggest playbooks in your life? Have they actually been physical books you've read? Like, what has been the most impactful for you for creating your own playbook, much less abiding by others?
Well, I think it depends on what it is. So for designing my ideal life, I got to create my own playbook. I can't use someone else's playbook. Now, I might like some of the things in their playbook and I can add it to my playbook, right? But for that, like, what I want to do is so much different than other people. Like what inspires me, or, the way that I want to build out our family and the experiences, like that's just, it's personal. So that one takes intentionality and being proactive. And I think you really have to be willing to put in the time to get clear on what it looks like. Otherwise you're just on default. Now you can juxtapose that with what's the playbook for getting into real estate. I mean, the first thing I did was invest in manufactured housing, and that's not a path most people take, but I actually got someone's real deal playbook. I had a mentor, I had a peer group, people that were doing it, people that I could go to, and there's an actual step-by-step playbook. And by the way, it's actually on two different levels. I had a step-by-step playbook on what are the assets that I want to buy. So like, what is a yes in the buy box? And then there's a playbook to actually run them once you own them. So everything could be literally copied to a T. And so I just look to whoever's the best and the brightest in that space. From a health standpoint, there is for sure a playbook. My trainer has and every trainer is going to have their own methodology. And I've used a lot of trainers over the years. I love my trainer now. I've loved my last number of trainers. But there's a playbook. And I think and so they do things differently. So the way I'm lifting today is totally different than I ever used to lift, right? And I'm following this guy's playbook, and I'm getting the best results I've ever gotten. And it's different. I used to lift by muscle group, and now, it's anterior, posterior. So it's just a different way of doing it. So I think when people have success, there are clues, and most people have a playbook to the things that they do where there's repetition of success. So when that exists, I want to use it. But there are certain areas where it doesn't make sense for me to take their playbook. I gave the example of Warren Buffett and the success that he's had, but he's personally admitted he was a horrible father and, doesn't have the relationship with his kids that he wanted because he was working instead of spending time with them.
Right.
So I don't want his results. I like that he was able to achieve what he achieved, but I would take way less results to have the relationship that I value with my family.
So good. Justin, what was it you said? You said buy box. Our mutual friend Qasim introduced that concept to me, and I was like, I love this. Can you unpack that a little bit, and how would that apply practically?
Yeah, I look at it as like an investment criteria. So inside the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind, we call it investment criteria. And you can have a criteria for a bunch of different things, right? I mean, I had a criteria for my wife. I was when I got clear that I was ready to get married and, get serious and settle down with someone, I actually created a criteria for who I was looking for. I stopped dating for 7 months. Didn't go on a single date, said no to for the first time, more times than I ever had, because I knew I needed to get clear on who it was that I want to marry. So, I created a list of what I wanted in a future spouse. And sure enough, I was able to meet that person because I knew exactly what I was looking for. So same thing, like in investing, we always teach our mastermind members, you don't just want to go invest. You actually want clarity around like what you want to invest in. What do you want the results to be? Like, you could go invest in this thing that you don't know if you're going to get a return for 20 years and it's high risk, or you can invest over here and this is cash flow and it pays you every month or every quarter. Yeah. So like, figure out what it is that you need. If you don't have any cash flow, you probably should add some cash flow. If you have all the cash flow you need and you're a true lifestyle investor, your passive income exceeds your lifestyle income, well, you might not need or want more passive income. So I think, like, when I say buy box, I think that's more the language that a lot of people use today.
Right.
But really, it's just a criteria, right? It's your form, it's your list. I've got a criteria in place for so many different things in life that, and those are boundaries. It's like, nope, that's outside the criteria. It's an easy no.
Yes,
it takes,
easy no. I love
the emotion out of it, right? Like, oh, I feel bad. I shouldn't, but no, it's outside the criteria. So the buy box is like, what are all the things that need to be relevant or prevalent for it to be a yes? And what are all the things that can't be there for it to be a no? So the buy box is like, here's all the things I would need to see to say yes and buy. And then here's all the things that I don't want to see. It's kind of a combo of both.
I love this. And I love the example of having a buy box for your wife. It's true. It's the clearer we are, the easier it is to say yes and no. And to your point, it removes the emotion, because emotion can so often be the thing that can really get in our way. And so much of emotion is driving purchase decisions. So It's like, okay, what's the kind of, and most everything in life is a transaction. It's like an exchange for our time, an exchange for our energy, an exchange for our money. And so if we're not clear. So I love this. I would love to have you kind of wrap up with 1 or 2 nuggets beyond, you said generosity at the very beginning from this conversation you had about how to 100x your impact. So being generous and really being overly generous as much as we can. How else, like 1 or 2 more things for us to walk away with? How can we 100% or 100 times increase our impact?
Well, I think getting clear on what really is like invigorating and exciting for you that can keep your attention for the long haul. Like, do you love what you do? Or do you need to reinvent yourself? Do you need to kind of move into a different career direction? This could be true if you're in corporate America. This could be true if you own your own business. Like, do you love it? Do you love the business? Do you just love being an entrepreneur? Do you love the company you work for? And if it's not a heck yes, life's pretty short. I would rather spend the rest of my life doing something that is a heck yes than a maybe, or it's okay. So, and for me, like, I'm always trying to reinvent myself, what I'm doing, have new projects that are stimulating. Like, I want to live a life of meaning and impact, but it is also fulfilling to me, right? Like, I want to feel good doing it. I want to enjoy it. I want to get into flow state, because it's awesome. Like, I want to be able to lose track of time because I'm so into it. Like, that is invigorating, and that's what I want. And so, like, I've made different pivots in businesses, buying or selling or starting, whatever. But now it's like, I don't have to get rid of the business I have. I can just layer onto it. Like, I can create meaning and impact differently. So it doesn't have to be a whole new business. Like, we're building out a family office, like a multifamily office division of Lifestyle Investor, where we're going to be able to serve our members' needs on anything and everything they need, from like bill pay to estate planning to tax strategy to money management to tax loss harvesting to governance to philanthropic strategic moves. Like, we're going to be able to do all that in-house. And I'm fired up about that because that's going to help a lot of our members, and it's going to help me. Like, this is good for me also. Like, I'm excited for my own family. And then on the flip side, I didn't even tell you about this, Christine. I just was thinking about it, but I've got a kid's book that's about to come out, and I'm so fired up about that. We're going to teach, learning to invest, learning to scale business, money habits to kids that are, I think target age is going to be 6 to 18 in this book, which I'm totally thrilled about. And I actually think a lot of the parents that read, the kids are too young to read it, so the parents read it to the kids. Like, I think the parents are going to learn a lot. These are a lot of lessons that parents probably don't even know. So I'm excited about that. We rolled out our young adults program, our mastermind for 18 to 30-year-olds, called Foundation. So it's like we just keep coming out with new things that are exciting. Tribe of Investors was our project 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, which is like the junior tier, the JV of Lifestyle Investor. So yeah, we're just trying to find ways to have impact, but also like do new things, do new, cool, fun things.
I love this. Y'all, I think that this is the perfect question to leave on. Are you doing something that's life-giving to you and something that you can really build on? Like, I love this, Justin, because when you do derive life from it, then your giving is thus receiving. It's such a wheel functionality. So I love what you're doing. I would love to hear more about the kids book. So when I see you Monday, if you have it with you, I'd love to see it. But thank you so much for coming on here. This has been absolutely outstanding, and I'm so grateful for the way you live. It's an incredible example, and it's impactful to boot. So thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be here, and looking forward to hanging in person next week.
Likewise, me too. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. Join us tonight. We are actually having game night at 7 p.m. Eastern trivia. So with that, thank you so much for joining. Justin, thank you. And I'll see you next week.